flying. Hang gliding is as close as you're ever going to get to flying like a bird. And I think you have, and as most people around the world have had some flying dreams in their life. And you woke up going, wow, I can fly. That was such a beautiful feeling. That's what it is.
I think there's some basic software problem. I think that they're missing a few lines of code that normally people would say, don't do that. It's not a natural thing. And these people, they don't have that in them.
The Telluride Air Force has been around for a long time. This is the 24th annual Airman's Rendezvous. The Telluride is the guardian of this precious flying site, and the mission of the Telluride Air Force is to preserve the flying here in this area far long after we're just memories of those old guys that used to jump off the hills here.
I don't think it's the danger so much as, I don't look at it as a high risk. It's not a high risk for me. It's something I've practiced. I'm competent at it. I don't screw up, but, it's so, kind of routine, and for me, it just seems like it's a logical progression, to fly the glider, close to its physical limitations, to explore the outer realms of what the glider is capable of doing.
When I die, I've already arranged, see where it says donor? I have a theory here. See, this is the name of a junkyard in Los Angeles called Pick Your Part. And I wrote that in the back of my license. I think hang glider pilots, you have an adrenal gland somewhere inside of your brain? I think what happens to hang glider pilots is this tiny hand grows and wraps its fingers around the adrenal gland. And then you actually gain control of it, right? And you get to squeezing it, and you get addicted to that.
This place makes me nervous because of the altitude. We're working with like 40% less air, so you've always got this little bit of oxygen debt, a little bit of hypoxia. The scenery is just astounding, and it's awe-inspiring. So that kind of weighs in your mind, and you're looking at the rocks and the trees and the canyons and all this that you're diving down into. As far as personal demons go, when you're in an aerobatic competition like this, you have to do maneuvers that are very difficult in order to score highly. And it depends on what level of proficiency you're at. There's 4 or 5 guys here that are really good, you know, we've been flying for a long time, and we've really dedicated ourselves to becoming as good as we can with this. And it doesn't ever get extremely easy. It gets to be normal, but there's still a lot of effort. There's a lot of concentration that you have to do. And we're handicapped by the thinness of the air, and so it makes things more difficult.
Hang glide airbags for a long time were extremely dangerous and were something that was sort of casual. People started out just doing high-speed dives and turning the glider. And some of the really first intense airbags were spin maneuvers, where the glider basically spins around like this into sort of like a corkscrew dive. About 1980, the first real good, somewhat safe-looking loops were viewed here in the United States. And initially, the speed was achieved by first stalling the glider, pushing the nose up, thereby losing the airspeed. The glider would then fall into an ensuing dive. The pilot would climb over the control bar with his body, ball up, if you will, dive the glider until the bar pressure on the glider became so intense it started to pull up. At that point, the pilot would just kind of let the bar go up a little bit and over the top. Now the aerobatic maneuvers are done with a lot more speed. The speed retention on the equipment is much better because of the improved aerodynamics and structural airframe of the gliders. And a glider now can do 90 miles an hour just by straight pulling in on the control bar.
I think I was at least the first woman to loop a glider, and I'm definitely the only woman that has competed aerobatics in America, again, as far as I know. And to this date, knock on wood, I haven't stalled on top. I've always made sure I've carried extra speed over the top if I feel and you get to know how much speed you need, and if you start coming up like this and you realize you don't have speed, you immediately bail off. And that's what makes it safe, or relatively safe, and because I know what kind of speeds I actually do need to do.
Well, there's always a danger when you're trying to fly upside down in a wing from which you're hanging. Obviously, if you get too slow upside down, you'll fall into the wing, and that's happened to many people, and they usually break the glider and in some cases get injured or killed. It happens most often with people who want to do radical freestyle but haven't built a solid foundation of fundamental maneuvers and practicing to grow from. As far as myself, I try to be very safe. I've had my mishaps, and I've always been lucky enough to come out of them with a full recovery.
We still have the classic spin. Now, a spin is generally entered, you fly along a little slightly faster than trim speed. You pull in a little bit, in other words, get a little bit more speed than trim speed, slow the glider down, and push out on it with one wing low. Eventually, you get the glider to a stall, and the nose will fall through, and the glider spins. That maneuver is still probably the most dangerous maneuver in gliding aerobatics these days, because the maneuver is entered from a stall mode. where the glider basically is not flying anymore. The entry is the most critical part. You have to enter the spin mover precisely, or you get wing waggle, or you could actually turn the glider upside down. Turn the glider upside down, which is really bad. That's not good. The gliders are made to stay together if they go upside down, but it takes them some time to recover.
It looks like where I live, you know, because I live in the Alps, near Chamonix in Samoin, a small village. So it looks like here. The difference here is much higher, because I live at 700 meters, and here we launch at about 4,000 meters. So I never did this before.
Everybody's got their own opinion on where hang gliding's going, where it's been and where it's heading and where it is now. Hang gliding is getting more complex. The gliders are more expensive. We're looking at $6,000 now for a new glider. When I got into the sport, my first glider was $350. That's a huge jump in price. It's getting more difficult for people to get into because there's not as many people instructing. There's not as many people to see doing the sport, because at this point, the mainstream of hang gliding is cross-country. You drive up a mountain, you set up your glider, nobody sees you up there from the town or from the highway or from the valley below. You set up your glider, you fly, you get up really high, and you fly away. You go hundreds of miles. Nobody ever sees you, so it's no longer a spectator sport. And in the old days, you didn't have that so much, so people could see it easier. It was more accessible.
Right now, I'll go ahead and set my altitude. You can hear the beep there. And I want to go plus 12,200 is the altitude here. Hit that again, and so now it's set properly. And so this is critical for helping you understand how you're flying and flying proficiently. This unit helps you core into the very, very center of the thermal that's going up the fastest. So as you're going into the center of the thermal, it'll be going beep, 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 beep. And then as you go out of the back of the center of the thermal, go beep, 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 beep. So that you can, once you get to that point, you start your turn right when it starts going beep, 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 so that you can core into the center.
Be careful of cloud suck today. Don't get sucked up in the cues today. Watch out for the rain today. If it starts to rain,
That won't fit over my regulator.
one of the old
Thanks,
sayings
though.
here, but it's so true, is don't get too high and don't get too low. And just have fun.
Straight up above you. Straight up.
I've been flying around 4 years, and I was one of those kids that always ran off the hills flatting, trying to make myself fly. And I was well into my 20s when I heard that you could actually fly without I'd never even seen a hang glider, but I was pretty committed to it before I even pulled a hang glider out of the bag. I knew that that was for me. Whoa! I just try to use my head, you know, and I just do sort of a risk analysis. So I look at the conditions, and if it's good, and I think my skills are up to it, then I go, and if it's not, then I just don't go. And you can eliminate a lot of risk by making smart decisions. It's the kind of sport it is, and it's a sport where it's very unlikely that someone else can do you damage, only yourself. So you're responsible only to yourself, and you just have to use your head a lot. So we launched at just over 12,000 feet, and we've climbed up to 15. Cloud base is at least 2,000 feet above. Look, Ryan, no hands. Okay, we're at 16, just over, and wingtip to wingtip with another pilot.
In 1972, I saw an article in the back of Popular Mechanics that said, "Fly like a bird for $5." So I sent him my $5 to Francis Rogallo, and he sent these plans, quote unquote. We built a hang glider for about $45, I think it was. Manufactured using, we did use aluminum tubing, which was state of the art at the time, which we thought was really great. And we used a plastic sail and could modify the sail by cutting it with scissors and then duct taping it back together, and that way we could like modify it to take more billow out. I already knew what to do, it seemed like. You know, I'd flown in my dreams all my life. I think I could fly from the time I was born, and I lost my leg in '75 in a boating accident. The moral of the story of that was that the hang gliding I always knew was risky. The boating, I'd always been in boats as a kid and never realized how dangerous the boats and cars and other stuff is compared to hang gliding, because hang gliding you realize your risk and you understand your risk. And it's like you know when you go flying around out there that you're in danger. Takeoff's real critical for me. I have to have at least a 7, and 7's really pushing it, but you know, I'll push it.
That's not one leggable, I'll tell you that.
Launching a hang glider is not a matter of strength or power. It's technique, and you get the glider exactly right. And once it's balanced in the wind, you just get it flying, and you just sort of follow it off. At one point, I'm going to come wheeling around one of these peaks and I'm going to see God. I swear, it's that powerful here. I'm not trying to be sacrilegious or anything, it's so spectacular that, especially when you're down low in the canyons, it gives you great perspective. And it still kind of spooks me a little bit. There's no doubt that it's risky. Danger is a relative term. I think that I think that you're in more danger on the freeway, I really do. You know, it's all a matter of focus, and focus is really critical in all flying, I think. While you're flying, you're hyper-focused, so to speak. You don't really think about much else except what you're doing, and you don't think about what just happened. It's kind of like right now what's happening. And it's also a great escape.
Control gate 2, light wind, everybody's in position.
Well, we do have a new event this year. It's called Speed Gliding Competition. It is high speed, low altitude, I should say, terrain flying. It's almost like terrain following aircraft. Without having the radar, the pilot's own mind, senses, eyes, and hands are the radar, and they fly as close as they can to the terrain through gates, following the contours of the land.
Right now we have two forms of gate. One is a single pylon which must be turned around with the entire glider, but it can be turned around at any altitude. The second one is called a control gate, and it is 6 meters high, and it comes out to be almost 20 feet exactly. And the pilot has to pass between two of these, and some part of the body or glider has to be below it. Very often the really good experienced speed glider pilots will be a foot off the ground because they want to go faster. The faster you go, the lower you get. And so really this is like ski racing, but in 3 dimensions. You don't just go side to side, but you control your altitude too, the 3rd dimension, which is, it takes a lot of skill, a lot of judgment, a lot of practice.
Ready? Yeah. Okay, you're on.
Clear.
Good.
All right.
Okay, what's the number for the next guy?
Look, Andy.
Next one.
Andy Weisel thought.
And we're just starting to hit a few bumps from the first thermals in the morning. Hey, like that. Yippee! All right. We're gonna go right.
Speed gliding has been about the newest contest format for hang gliding several years. It has a long history in the U.S. We've been racing gliders on the coast and up in the mountains for years and years, and now we have these dash for cash, and it gets much more exciting.
Sort of dive until you're scared and wait 2 more seconds.
60, 70 miles an hour up in the air is almost hard to tell. But, once you get next to the ground, you see things whizzing by very quickly.
I'm going through the gate about 1.5 feet off the ground. And when you're going that fast, things are happening pretty quick. So you need to make sure that you're paying attention, because your day can be ruined in a real hurry.
When you're coming down, at least you can hit those control gates. It's something that you know you can do. So the first time we flew off the hill, we hit those control gates at about 80 miles an hour. And that was the scariest thing I've done, because when you go through there, you're just thinking, boy, I hope they set this course up with no power lines. There's no time for that. It's just you and the poles. It's scary.
Speed gliding, I think, is going to be, along with aerobatics, a great spectator event. It's something people can just look and see, coming right at them. They can hear the sound of the glider, the big whooshing sound of the glider as it goes by. They can watch it turn on a high bank and see the pilots straining to pull and keep the speed up and the glider under control as it whizzes by.
What it has been designed for and what we continue to be aware of is how photogenic it is. It's as exciting as watching any type of ski racing or motor racing or that sort of sport. It's an action sport. It's, things are moving. It is pretty exciting to us. It's extremely exciting to the pilots that fly it, and we think the spectators are going to like it.
I got hold of an old cargo parachute, and I was convinced that if I could get it to inflate Then I would release from the telephone pole that I would fly. That worked just enough to keep me from breaking my neck. And then I decided there must be a better way. And it was really appropriate at the time as I looked up, this was in Washoe Valley, Nevada, and there were hang gliders. And it just, like a light bulb, just burst in my head like a flash bulb, and I went.
Okay, you're hooked into the primary and secondary, and carabiner is locked. Okay. Come on down here. You comf?
Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to fly. And I saw this in popular mechanics or popular science when I was really small, and in the 70s, early 70s, and I thought I really wanted to do this, and kind of put it in the back of my mind until I got out on my own, started working and making my own living, and at that point I thought, I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do: skydiving, kayaking, hang gliding. And skydiving didn't work out too well. I didn't really like the sensation. So next on the list was hang gliding, and I saw it, and I took a couple of lessons and thought, this is it, and it's been that way for, I'm into my 20th year now.
As the glider's lifting, you'll start taking your weight off, and you'll be moon running. You'll just kind of be running, but not really touching.
Michael Jackson kind of thing.
Exactly.
All right.
Only without the gloves. All right, what we're doing is we're looking at the streamers down there, the wind direction, kind of getting in tune with nature here.
I started in 1978, and I got into it just because I had always dreamt of flying and had tried airplanes, and it didn't even approach the dream. And once I saw hang gliders, I kind of figured that that was more the kind of flying I was looking to do. And first flight on a hang glider, 2 feet off the ground, off of a 20-foot sand dune, I knew that was the kind of flying I'd like to do.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you're ready.
What we'll do is we'll go ahead and walk down 10 feet.
Okay.
David?
Yep.
Isn't it?
As a child, I used to always dream I could fly, knew I could. Built my old hang glider when I was 10 years old out of broomsticks and duct tape and plastic, and didn't really fly, but well, we thought it did. Jumped off haystacks with it. Then I got in the 16, I saw a hang gliding magazine, still hadn't seen a hang glider yet, and I was like, that's what I want. So I became a member, but I'm in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, there's no hang gliding going on. So I started flying airplanes and got my airplane private pilot license when I was 18. Then just discovered a local instructor down in Chicago, took one lesson, tried to train myself for 2 years, that didn't work out. And so I finally went down to Lookout Mountain, Tennessee and learned how to fly.
South launch, launching!
I got it, thank you.
Clear.
There's no freedom like being in the sky, to be able to travel around, to be able to see below you and above you, to be able to see the whole world from altitude. It gives you a vision that you just don't have anywhere else. But that freedom of being able to land just about anywhere and being able to see everything, beautiful places like this, that's the main thing that drives me.
it is my spirituality. It is my form of reaching to God. It's been one of the best influences of my life that I've ever discovered. It is really the ultimate source of freedom. The other thing I say is the ultimate high. The only thing that is any better than hang gliding is extremely good sex.
I used to think if you walked up to 100 people and just shook them and said, "Do you want to go hang gliding?" that 99 of them would say, "Well, yeah," and one of them would say, "No way." But that was a long time ago. Now I'm seeing the same old scruffy faces out here that I've seen for many years, and I'm thinking, they're not breeding fast enough, and they are dying out, and that is very sad.
It's just fun. It's fun for me, you know. It's kind of a release of tension, you know. I like being around people that enjoy doing what I do, you know. And there's not a lot of people that can or will do this. You know, the longer I've been flying for, you know, like 20 years now. You know, I've been around the sport, and there are just not a lot of people that are capable of dealing with the big picture and flying long term and becoming good at it.
Pretty much the sport of hang gliding is about as dangerous as you want to make it. You can fly a nice, simple, novice, intermediate glider in very safe conditions with hardly any turbulence in the air whatsoever. Put wheels on the glider, and should you happen to trip on a rock, you'll still roll to a stop in very smooth conditions. Or you can come to Telluride, become an aerobatic pilot, and loop and spin and twist the glider over at 12, 13,000 feet all day long if you wish.
Well, I'm not sure what the term spiritual means, but I don't have any religious beliefs. But it certainly is a very special experience for me to fly above immense mountains. The feeling that you get of insignificance when you're up high above the mountains is something that I think all humans should experience in one way or another.
Feel alone up there. Even if you're flying with some buddies, you feel like nobody's watching you, nobody's there. You feel really alone when you're doing your maneuvers, like nobody could possibly be watching me, you know, and that's the feeling that you get. You just can't find that anywhere. Can't experience that three-dimensional feeling.
I love to fly, and so my perception of flying is not that it's a real dangerous sport. Any sport where you're in the air is a dangerous sport. It's non-forgiving, but this sport, the dangers of this sport come from lack of judgment. And so if you exercise good judgment, this sport can be a very safe sport.
The preoccupation with being in the air and having a bird under your wing or climbing up above the mountains, being close to the clouds, up the side of the clouds, that far outweighs the danger aspect of it for me.
I think most of the time when I'm flying, I really just am, you know, I forget to look around and I'm just like flying, you know.